Welcome back to 3 Plus You. So happy that my friend, and I hope your friend as well, Linda Mines, is here this morning. We're on the end now, Linda, of what has been Constitution Week. But for you, the celebration is certainly not ending today. You're looking ahead to something big happening this weekend.
Well, we are. And I will tell you, first of all, Constitution Week is one of my favorite weeks of the year. And I know I say that about the 4th of July and Veterans Day and Memorial Day and Bill of Rights Day. But Constitution Week is a time for us to sort of slow down and reflect on, in fact, I'm going to use the phrase Miracle at Philadelphia, which is a book that was written back in 1966 about the Constitutional Convention and the drafting of our U.S. Constitution. And I think that so often maybe we focus on the flaws that we still have as a nation. Any nation has flaws. And we forget that indeed it was a miracle that happened at Philadelphia. For a group of founding fathers at that point, with some influence by letters from some of the founding mothers, were able to come together and do what no nation had up until that point been able to do in the history of our world. And that was to draft a document which is the shortest constitution on record and the longest continuously used constitution in the history of the world, but to create a balanced government based on the will of the people was something that people had dreamed about for centuries and didn't know how to do. Even Athens, that we consider to be the birthplace of direct democracy, it didn't last very long. And here we are 200 and plus years and it's still going.
I want to be careful how I tread here because I don't want to in any way get political.
Right, I agree.
But here we are talking the week of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death. And as you read about her life, I'm fascinated by her life. Depending on kind of what you want to choose to believe, she was very much though a supporter of the Constitution from what I know as it stands. And so it seems like we have this challenge as a country to realize that in the 200 plus years that come before us, there have always been differences of opinion, and you have to be careful to not go changing the law to meet the emotional need. Does that make sense, what I'm trying to say?
It makes sense. And you know, what I remind people, especially when we start talking about the Constitution, the Supreme Court, is, you know, what a wonderful example that Justice Ginsburg and Justice Scalia as best friends presented, because they were often on opposite ends of the 5-4 decisions. You know, one would be on the winning side, the other one would not. And it depended on the issue as to how it flipped. But they were the best of friends because they enjoyed that intellectual debate over the intent of the Constitution and how best to apply it to people. And you know, I think I miss that civil discourse. I miss that wonderful opportunity to talk about this document. I'm assuming that everybody out there has your pocket Constitution and you carry it all the time. Chandler, I know you have yours, but it's important to realize that it's there for debate. And that was the role of the Supreme Court, was to interpret the Constitution, not to legislate, not to enforce, but to interpret, so that then the executive branch could enforce. And if there was a challenge to legislation that came out of Congress, then you would have the Supreme Court interpreting it. And you look at that balance of power. You know, there's a balance of power between the federal government and state governments. There's a balance of power between the 3 branches. Probably everyone out there who is alive at some point in an American history class drew the triangle with the 3 branches of government and how it checks each other. But I mean, as many mistakes as may have occurred in our 200 and almost 50 years as a nation, the miracle is we have a smooth transition of power. You know, think about it. Our Constitution is so strong and it is so interspersed into the way that we think culturally that a president who loses an election, let's say an incumbent who loses the election, very graciously invites the new president into the White House. They normally have coffee or tea. That family packs up and leaves and the new family comes in.
Right.
In most countries, that's accomplished by gunfire,
Right.
but
Right.
not here.
Not
And
here.
I think we have so much to celebrate. The danger is because we're a representative democracy, we are a republic. It depends on us being informed citizens. It's critical. And the founding fathers, whether you look at James Madison, who was there chronicling every moment of the Constitutional Convention, or you look at a Thomas Jefferson who's in France writing letters to delegates, or a Ben Franklin or a George Washington, they all knew that this government would only work as long as we as individuals participated.
Well, and I guess that's why, and I don't want to get into what's happening this weekend, but just real quickly, I guess that idea of the informed citizenry is why in the early days, it was only landowners who could vote. It was only men who could vote. And then this awakening of the fact that anyone who chooses can be informed
Exactly.
opened up the voting rights to all of us.
It did, and we look today, and that's what we want most, is for people to be informed, for them to come out and to vote, whether you choose to vote early. I mean, we have an election coming up on November the 2nd, and I would encourage everyone to come vote. It is your voice, your vote, because that's how the system works. I tell people I'm not as interested in the candidate for whom you will vote. What I'm interested in is you knowing and voting your convictions. That's what makes the republic work.
So
people come together.
So let's talk a little bit. I'll go back to the Justice Ginsburg example, and then we'll use that to transition into what's happening tomorrow. Because when you look at someone, I think what's made her such an icon of late, these last 10 years, is that women and men, hopefully, look at her and marvel at the fortitude in which she lived her life. I mean, anything that you almost attribute as an access that you have as a woman today, you can almost go back to Ruth Bader Ginsburg and thank her for. I mean, simple things like having a credit card. Like she paved the way. So she then chronicles her way up to notoriety. But what we talk about so often is that then there is the everyman in this country who also holds our values close to his or her heart, who isn't always known. You have a chance to go out to the cemetery tomorrow and meet a man who you're honoring, right, Linda?
Well, that's true. And actually, he is there at the cemetery every morning at about 8:30. We are going to honor him on Saturday at the Hubert Fry Center that's at the Riverwalk or River Park right off of Amnicola. Jay McFalls, and I hope that everyone knows Jay or has seen Jay at some point. Jay is a World War II veteran. He is the composite of the ideal American citizen, someone who came to his nation's aid during a difficult time in our history, came back home, became, a working, productive citizen, raised a family, has given of his time to the community. And he is, I guess one of the things that just so strikes my heart is that he has remained forever the vigilant soldier. And what he does now that's so incredible, pre-COVID, he was at the Chattanooga VA clinic every Friday with guitar in hand. Now, Mr. McFalls is in his 90s, entertaining patients as they wait to be treated. But the other thing is that his beloved wife, Vivian, died in 2014. And anyone who frequents the Chattanooga National Cemetery in the early morning will see Mr. McFalls every morning around 8:30. He drives up, he parks, he gets his lawn chair out. Often he has his guitar and he goes and he spends a couple of hours with Vivian. He says that the idea of until death do you part is invalid, that his love for her is eternal. And I mean, that just takes my breath away, but he is such a feature of the Chattanooga National Cemetery. Everybody that's there, all the employees think of him as their resident grandfather. They love him. And that idea of devotion to nation, devotion to family, devotion to the ideals that make us a nation. We're going to celebrate at 11 a.m. at the Herbert Fry Center, where he will be recognized with a Quilt of Valor. It's open to the public. We're outside so that there's plenty of standing room. It'll be safe, socially distancing. And I can't think of a better way to end Constitution Week than to celebrate. He would not want me to use the word hero, but to celebrate a patriot,
Mm-hmm.
someone who loves this nation and represents the best possible ideals.
It's a shame that we are living in this COVID world because travel is such a difficult thing to really go and easily do. But for anyone who's ever been to Arlington, and if you haven't, make sure you go. But
Yeah.
you know things in history. You know the inauguration speech of JFK, and ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. You know all these quotes of things. But then you go to the cemetery, and when we went with our younger daughter some years back, I literally was moved to tears at the eternal flame and reading the words of President Kennedy, because it's this touchable, palpable truth of our country that we so easily forget. And there's just something bone tingling about realizing that each person has the power to affect the change he or she wants to affect.
That's exactly true. And I mean, I think that's one of the things that I encourage people to do this all the time. And, I'm a reader. I love books, but I am telling you that to sit down with someone like Mr. McFalls, that's one reason why our Chief John Ross chapter is honoring him this way, along with the Veterans Council. It's better than a book. He is a living, walking story that individuals need to access. I mean, he loves it when someone comes out and sits with him for a little while and talks with him when he's at the cemetery. I mean, he's an incredible teacher, but he's a very gentle guide through that history. And he is very, he's not self-motivated in any way by it. He just will tell you that he's blessed to be a citizen of this nation. That's really what citizenship and the Constitution is all about, are the countless individuals across the nation who have chosen to do what they deem to be the right thing to make certain that this nation does indeed continue for our posterity, to borrow a word from the Constitution. So, I mean, if you're out and about Saturday morning, if you don't have plans for Saturday morning, please come help us celebrate this incredible, incredible man that lives amongst us. And there are others like him that we need to pay tribute to.
11 o'clock Saturday morning at the River Park, the Fry Center there.
Free parking, plenty of ample room to stand, and we might even be having a little victory cake.
All right. Linda, always good to see you. Thank you so much for your time this morning. We're
I'm
back
glad to be here.
in just a minute.
We know that moving can be stressful, but we've got the solution with my guaranteed offer plan. You see, you get to skip the staging, the showings, and all those repairs. In fact, you just pick the closing date and start packing. Call me today and let's get your home sold.
If you have Medicare and Medicaid, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee is here to offer